Today we are doing Japanese-Italian fusion. So this is a dish that I've kind of been dreaming up for a few weeks. I've had something similar in a restaurant, but it is a miso cream sauce. We are going to use white miso. It's one of the more delicate miso flavors. But for the noodles, we're also going to use ramen noodles. These are really nice. You can get them in an H Mart or at Whole Foods. We're also going to use some mushrooms, cream, scallion, some nice fresh cheese, and I'm also going to make some, buttered Parmesan breadcrumbs. I'm going to walk you through those breadcrumbs real quickly right now. I know I've done them in a previous video, but just get butter into a pan, throw those breadcrumbs in, let them absorb all of that butter up. You could also use olive oil if you don't want to use butter and make these a little healthier, but these aren't really a base of the dish. They're just a topping. So get them into that pan, have that butter absorb it real nice. Right towards the end when they're starting to get brown, I like to go ahead and add in a little bit of parm. I didn't do this on the last one, but normally this is what I like to do. And then at that point, once they look nice and golden brown, just pull them out and throw them onto a plate so they can cool down. You don't want to put these piping hot onto your food. You want to let them cool down a little bit and they'll continue to crisp. The main base of this sauce is going to be shallot. You can use garlic if you want as well, but I'm just going to use shallot. So we're going to take 1/2 of a shallot, maybe a little less, a third. And we're just going to finely dice it. Try to get this nice and as fine as you can. You don't want huge chunks in the dish, but a nice fine dice will be really nice, and then just kind of go through it and mince it up a little bit. We're also going to use portobello mushrooms. You can use a more Japanese mushroom if you would like, but I like this flavor with it. And I'm going to create a nice small dice. You want fairly decent sized pieces, so you could grab them with a fork, but you want them so big that they take up the entire bite. So right around that is what I'm looking for, like a nice little cubed dice, and you're good to go. Now let's start putting this sauce together. We're going to start with olive oil and then a tiny, maybe about a tablespoon, half a tablespoon worth of butter. We're going to let that melt down. I'm going to throw that into a nice little time lapse here. I let this get a little bit too hot, but you really just want to get that butter to the point where it's fully melted. Now we're going to pull it off the heat a little bit because I knew it was a little too hot. But we're also going to add those shallots in now. Once you add them in, the goal here is simply to get them translucent. You don't need to brown them. You don't need to cook them for too long. I can tell it's still a little bit too hot, so I'm going to hold them up off the heat for a second just to make sure that they're not burning. But you just want to get these nice and translucent. After about a minute of that, we're going to add in those mushrooms. Turn a little reddish orange from oxidation. Totally fine. Don't worry about that. Cook those down now for about 1 to 2 minutes. You want them to soften, but they will continue to cook in the cream sauce, so you don't need to full on cook those right now. There will be a special ingredient in that cream sauce coming up shortly though, so stay tuned for that, but salt them a little bit. We're also not going to pepper them right now. I'm going to pepper at the very end with white pepper, but now we're going to add our miso. I'm going to add about 1/2 of a small spoon's worth. You could add a little more if you want. It can overpower your dish, so be careful with it. But now the secret ingredient to deglaze and add a little bit of flavor, we're going to use some champagne. This is Prosecco, but you can use whatever you want, any sparkling white wine. It will make this sauce a little lighter and a little nicer on the palate, and it'll give the miso something to mix in with, so it's not just sitting in the pan. You don't need to do the stage, but it is really, really nice for it. Let that all come together and start to reduce. You don't need to reduce it by much, but maybe enough that it starts to not be super loose. Like, when you drag the spatula and you can see the bottom. That's kind of what you're looking for there. And then we're going to add the cream. You could do somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 a cup here, depending on how much of that miso flavor you want. The more cream you add, the more subdued the other background flavors are going to be. So add as much as you would like, but I would say start with 1/4, reduce that, taste it, and then let me know what you think from there. At this point, this is the base of the sauce. It is 99% what it's going to become. I'm going to add in a little bit of that parm at this stage just to help develop a little bit of the flavor. It's kind of based in Alfredo sauce. The fusion here is a little bit of, you have your Japanese with your miso, the ramen noodles. We're going to have some green onions. Then you have your Italian with the cream-based sauce. I know some Italians don't do cream-based sauces, but American Italian. And that's the level of reduction we're looking for right there. I'm going to add a little bit of those green onions in. We're going to garnish it with them as well at the end, but I wanted to add a little bit in as well right now just to start to develop those flavors. And at this point, we're going to add in that pepper. A little bit of white pepper right now. You could use black pepper if you want. I just like to keep it the lighter color pepper so you don't see those huge pepper spots. It is a nice white sauce. Really don't like that. I did forget to mention earlier, but those noodles I threw in right there at the end, they take 2 minutes. They're fresh ramen noodles. So once those are done getting cooked, I put them in right as I peppered it and mixed it in. So about a minute ago, 2 minutes ago. Pull those out, throw them into the pan, and really start to mix it up. If you think it's too thick, it probably is. Add a little bit of pasta water. I'm going to do it twice in this cooking period, but as you can tell, it is starting to cover the noodles nicely, which is what I want, but it is a little thick. That's personally how I like to make cream-based sauces, is reduce them to the point where they're nice and thick and then bring them back with the pasta water. If they're too thin in the pan, they're not going to coat the noodles and they're just going to create a puddle at the bottom of the plate. Mix a little more cheese into your taste preference. See how you're doing then. It still needed a little bit of pasta water, and then it's going to be perfect. Mix this all together. The mushrooms are always going to push to the sides of the pan. They never like to incorporate. We're going to scoop those out at the end and kind of top it with those. But that's what you're looking for right there. It's incorporated. It's coating the noodles beautifully. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Now let's plate this up. See, when you pull it out, it doesn't just completely drip off. The noodles are holding it beautifully there. Just take it out, put it onto a nice plate. I think this dish is a little nicer on a plate than in a bowl, so you could really see the proportions of it and all the elements and layers in it. A lot of mushrooms and stuff left in that pan, so we're going to go ahead and grab a spatula, scrape them out, and just top it with those. It's really nice to just kind of see those layered over the top to know that you got some nice ingredients in this dish, not just noodles and cream. You can't see the miso, you can't see the champagne, so show what you can. Add a little bit of those green onions. Then we're going to grab those breadcrumbs. I've been keeping them warm in the oven for the time being, so grab those and just kind of layer those over the top as well. You can add as much as you would like. I like to add a little bit on later as I'm eating and mixed in. Then just throw over some of that cheese, and you're done. That's it. This is a super simple dish. These two flavors of the Japanese and the Italian come together beautifully. This is honestly one of my favorite dishes that I've ever made. Not just saying that for the video. This is really, really good. You could add other ingredients to make this even more different if you want to try something different, but this is a great starting place for you. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. This is Japanese Italian fusion.